Welcome back to our beginner rhythm and counting course, a wonderful workshop for you or anybody who are trying to either learn how to read and play and understand music, or even coming back and you are just kind of rehashing your old skills. This is a big episode because today we are going to be talking about rests. We have been using just notes for the past 2 lessons, and this lesson will include rests, which is a bit more complicated. But it's not that complicated if you understand how they work and why they are the way they are. Now, where will you get this package? You can find it on my website, proteanman.com. It's right there at the top, and also the link /music-education, or just hover over courses and it's right there. Education might not look the exact same as this because it changes over time. But either way, you can find it all here, including this course, the beginner course. So if you click that image, you'll find this page, which describes it, gives you information, gives you everything you need to get going with it, including when you get the course, it includes an email with a link to download the entire package. Print it out, do whatever you need with it. Make sure you fully understand all your rhythm and counting, and I promise you, your skills and abilities will skyrocket. Now, I've used this for over a decade with my students. I've honed it down for you so that you have something very concise and really easy to get and work through without having a direct teacher in front of you. If you are a teacher and you're using this with your classes, by all means, do what you need, and you can cherry pick. You can pick and choose whatever you'd like in this course. You can use the videos that I'm making, which you're watching right now, or you can just do it on your own. By all means, whatever you need. But it's all here for you, and I am always open to questions or comments or ideas or whatever you like to communicate with me about. I will answer you as best as I can and as quickly as I can as well. Have a question or just click the contact button right there. That is about it. Now we are getting back into rests, which are really one of the things that is anti-music or anti-sound, because rests are typically just silence. It's just nothing. What they mean is don't play, don't make a sound, don't do anything. And that is really important because most of music ends up being rests unless you're doing a solo or something. You know, you're playing a lot. But if you're playing in an orchestra or playing in a band or something, you might be resting quite a bit. So understanding how to count rests is very important. Now, let's get into a few things before we get rolling with the rest. These 3 rules attached to every single lesson, every single thing to do with counting from here to forever. Number 1 being show each beat or pulse. You can call it whatever you want, but you must show me the beat. It's basically just the counts in the bar. Number 2 being only show what's needed. And this works in 2 different ways. One being you don't need to put a symbol or a counting or something when there's no note there. So only put what is on the page, and it's just lined up directly above it anyways. And the second part of it being, if there is something, you should show me your counting. And as you get better and better, you don't need to write everything down, but it's good practice to understand how it all works. And number 3 is important for mostly me, maybe you. It depends on how you write, but I write kind of large and flowy. You can just consider it just for me for now. It's write clearly and concisely, and that way we all understand what we are doing and it makes sense as you work through rhythm and your music and anything else really. So again, we are on sheet 1.2. So if you don't know what that is, at the very top of the page, let me just give you an example. This is the first one. It will say 1.2 right here. Make sure it's lined up, and number 1 should look just like this up here, and then you are all, that was a terrible line, you were rolling all together. All right, so first things first, this is not that complicated. It's really just this bar repeated, and then a little bit of a mix. And the way number 1 is working is it's sort of introducing you to the 2 common rest symbols that are attached to quarter notes and 8th notes. Because so far in level 1 we are only using, and actually the whole time in level 1 we only use 8th notes and quarter notes. We don't use half notes, we don't use whole notes. I have a longer explanation in other videos, and I think lesson number 1 on why I don't use half notes and whole notes right away. And this takes precedent to everything. So we are going to just hash through number 1, which is actually pretty simple. So let's count together the first bar. 1, 2, 3, 4. The next thing, there are also inside this bar, so put the bar lines there, show you what that bar is. Inside this bar, there are still 4 symbols, which kind of gives you a hint if you're playing Sherlock Holmes that they are the exact same size as a quarter note, which means they will also, most likely, and you're probably right, that they are also 1, 2, 3, 4 if you've already done this. Now, one thing to consider is that this means don't play, don't make a sound. So when we're clapping back, we won't be clapping. We'll kind of pretend to clap or just hold our hands open, which is kind of like the elementary school way of showing a rest where you open your hands up. And we count though. We still are gonna count. So whenever there's a counting underneath, we're gonna count. But when the notes are above it, now we get a bit more complicated. And this is where people get confused. We go back and forth, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. Let's just finish the bar off, or the line off. So this next bar, we've done this 1,000 times. 1 and 2 and 3 and. And here's where it gets a little bit confusing, because for some reason the eighth notes, the rule of them being attached together in groups of 2 or 4 does not apply to the rests. So if you are a young kid, if you're, let's say, grade 3 or so, and you're watching this video, just think about it like this way, like this. And this is kind of mean in a way. Eighth notes have tons of friends. They will always have either 4 friends or 2 friends, or they like being on their own sometime when they're like this, and they have a little wing on them. But either way, they are totally fine with hanging out in groups. Rests, on the other hand, and this goes for every single rest, rests don't like other people very much. They don't like holding hands or hanging out, so they are always on their own, which means that these 8th rests are also the same size as this, but they are not grouped like this, and that gets confusing. So think about it like this. If I attach a few stems and I put a line across, then you can see exactly where those 8th rests are lining up. So I have groups of 4 here, a group of 4, and 2 groups of 2, just like this over here. It's the same thing as this. If I count it, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and it still counts the same, but we just don't play, but it looks a bit different. And this is where a lot of people get confused. And this is also a big reason why I do 8th notes and quarter notes only in the very first level. Let me erase this, make it as clear and concise as possible. Finish off the last bar. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. So we have quarter notes, quarter rests. We have, let me underline them, quarter notes, quarter rests. We have 8th notes and 8th rests, the exact same thing between those 2 bars. Play, don't play. And then the last bar we're mixing, quarter note, quarter rest, and then 8th notes. But they all are the same value. Quarter, quarter, 8th, 8th. So I hope that makes sense. I hope this sort of flows into your already existing knowledge from lesson 1 and 2. If this doesn't make sense, and you have watched the first 2 lessons, lesson 1 and 2 in our counting, then I want to see if I can rehash this in a different way. But we're going to count this and clap this first out loud, and that might be the way that will help you if you're still a bit confused. So here we go. We're going to clap and count together. Let me pull up our metronome and our video camera. And you can see my hands here. Now, just to reiterate this from the previous videos, what you're doing is I'm clapping, you're doing the exact same thing as me. And that way, it's sort of this really easy process to understand how it's working, because you're basically just copying me. But I'm sure you get it. And the second thing is when we hit the rest, so we have the quarter notes to start in the first bar. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4. When we hit the rest, we're still going to count, but we're not going to clap. So I'm going to open my hands up like this and go 1, 2, 3, 4. This is really like you're a kid learning music, grade 3 again, even younger. But it's just a good way to really show it. So you don't have to do this. You can just not clap. But I'm going to show the rest like this. For eighth notes, I won't go super fast because it's a bit ridiculous. But you can just do your best with this. So here's what's going to happen. You can always rewind this video. You can always redo it and redo it. So I'm only going to clap and count this once. But I hope this will make a lot more sense once we do this. So you can either watch and then rewind and clap, or try to do it the first time with me. Either way, here we go with number 1. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and. I hope that helped out. The eighth notes, I kind of just showed the beat, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and I'm sure you might have done the same thing. Let's move on to number 2. In this way, we're going to sort of just focus on a few things before we get going. So we had the introduction in number 1 to both types of rests, quarter and eighths. And now we're going to focus just on quarter note rests. So here we go, number 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, I'm sure you can already understand what's going to happen here. 1, 2, 3, 4. If it's all quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Counting to 4 1,000 times. So we have our counting and our camera and our rhythm and our metronome and everything's happening. The metronome's at 72 beats per minute, so if you want to get the same speed later on, just dial in your metronome to 72 or something close to it. Here we go. Number 2. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. Pretty easy stuff. Quarter notes. Just don't clap on the rests. Kind of hard not to notice those rests. The quarter note rests are quite, I call them like a bit of like sandpaper. They're really jagged looking. These are very smooth looking with the notes, so it's easy to notice them. Number 3, here we go. Counting out loud. This one is kind of the same idea as here, where you have the same thing over and over again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and bar line. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So it's all 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and the whole way across. And now we get to count and clap. So, you ready for this? This one will be pretty easy. It might look complicated, but it's actually pretty easy if you just follow the counting. So number 3, 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and. Now I had to catch my breath because I didn't have enough air for the whole thing. But your goal is just to count out loud as best you can. And I hope that made a lot more sense now. Now let me just rehash one thing quickly here. Oops, wrong camera. You can see a lot better here up at the top. you can really see that it's all just 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and there's no real dividers between. But here you can see these notes are helping you with the gaps. And just imagine that there are stems here, and you can always group into groups of 2 in your head or groups of 4. Technically, there would not be a group of 4 here because by rule, when you're writing music, this is sort of way in the future for you, is there's actually an invisible divider line, not a bar line, just a divider inside the bar right in the middle, which means you're not allowed to connect things over top of that divider. So just remember that. But in the meantime, I'll just put 2 separate group eighth notes. And then in your head, you can do the rest here. We have the last one, 1, 2, 3, 4 connected, and then I can put 1, 2 right there. So I hope this kind of makes more sense as you look at it. Eighth notes, eighth rests, eighth notes, eighth rests, because as we go forward, it's going to be a bit of a mix back and forth. Now also, speaking of rules, last thing, that divider line is one rule when you're writing music. Second rule is you wouldn't have 2 eighth notes, eighth rests here. You would actually just have my ugly version of a quarter rest. These would be canceled out. It would just be a 1. You wouldn't have 2 eighth rests because the goal when you're writing music is to keep it as simple as possible when you're reading it. You can write the complicated rhythms, but you have to write them in the simplest way possible. Kind of like mathematics and fractions when you want to bring it down to the lowest common denominator. I'm sorry. And that's it. So this would be brought down to a quarter rest. Okay, number 4. Here we go. We have 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, and that 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that is not a very nice 4. Let me fix that. Still pretty bad, but oh well. Working forward. So number 4, let's clap and count. You can always rewind the video again, so don't worry too much if you make too many mistakes. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 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 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. Now, you might have noticed that there's a bit of a pattern in this rhythm. It's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that counting is a pattern. And what it did is it made it easy to count, and now all you're doing is you're lining up the different parts. So it's like that bouncing ball repeats 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that repeating pattern really helps you just lay in certain places when you play or don't play. Okay, almost finished with our brand new rests. I hope that you're doing well with this because it's not too complicated, but just when you first get the hang of it, there might be a few roadblocks. And by all means, leave a question below in the comments or on my website with the question button or the contact button. It's all there for you, and I will answer you as quickly and best as I can. Number 5. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 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 I'm going to fix that because that 3 is not lined up. 3, 4, that's better. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Again, we have a pattern here. Going to help you with the counting and clapping and everything else. Here we go. Number 5. 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 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 So that same counting, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, is just the whole thing, the exact same all the way across. And all you're doing is you are figuring out where that bouncing ball hits and where it just skips. So really, again, hits, hits, skips, hits, skips, all that fun stuff. It's like the old Disney movies, if you ever watched those things. And all you're doing is hitting on certain parts. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. I'm positive it's making more sense now. Don't give up. We're almost there. It's going to get easier because all it takes is a bit of practice. And the wonderful thing is that even if it is difficult, when you get it, it's going to feel really good because the best things in life are always the most difficult. Number 6. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Almost a pattern, sort of a pattern, a repeating pattern, I mean. Okay, counting and clapping. Always rewind. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Finished. All done. I did the rest at the end, if there was a rest after that. Okay. So close. You are so close. Here we go. Number 7. 1, and 2, 3, 4. And number 7 is typically in my sheets, just to give you a bit of a hint. Sort of a mix of different things from the sheet. So it's kind of like the final exam. If you've gotten through all the way through here and you've got it correct, eventually, or mostly correct, then number 7 will not be difficult. 1, and 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So, last one, number 7. Are you ready? Here we go. Clapping and counting. Copy me exactly. 1, 2, ready, go. 1 and 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 2, 3, 4, and 1 and 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. That's it. You're done. So thank you again for watching. If you have any comments or questions or anything at all, just let me know in the comment section below or on my website, proteanman.com. It is right there for you. Either way, I will see you in the next video. Thanks very much. I'll see you next time.